This is the Linear Algebra Lectures video series. You can find more information about this video as well as a link to the written textbook in the description below. Stick around to the end of the video to learn more about this video series and the associated teaching and learning tools I've created for it. Lecture 9, Matrix Equations. Our objectives for this lecture are to find the coefficient matrix for a linear system or a vector equation, compute the product of a matrix and a vector or determine that that product is undefined, solve a matrix equation, and understand the Spanning Columns Theorem and use it to determine whether the columns of a given m by n matrix span Rm. We've already seen the augmented matrix for a system of linear equations. In this augmented matrix, the first column contains the coefficients of x1 from each equation in our system, the second column contains the coefficients of x2, and so on, but then the last column contains the values that are on the right-hand sides of each equation in our system of equations. The coefficient matrix includes all of those variable coefficients, but does not include those right-hand side values. So for example, in this system of equations, the coefficient matrix just has 3 columns because we have 3 variables, whereas the augmented matrix contains 4 columns, 1 column for each variable, and then a 4th column that contains the right-hand side values. Now when we describe the size of a matrix, we'll typically write it as m by n. So we write the 2 numbers with a cross symbol in between them. The first number represents the number of rows of the matrix, and the second number represents the number of columns of the matrix. When this matrix describes the coefficient matrix for a system of equations, m is the number of equations in the system, and n is the number of variables. And then the augmented matrix has 1 additional column, so that matrix would be m by n plus 1 if there are m equations and n variables. Now we want to define what it means to multiply a matrix by a vector. So when we have an m by n matrix, remember that means m rows and n columns. If we name the columns of that matrix a1, a2, all the way up through an, so there are n columns, so that means there are n of those vectors, and there are m rows in my matrix, which means that each of those vectors has m entries, in that case we can define the product of a times x, where x is a vector with n entries, and all that means is the linear combination of the columns of that matrix, where the weights in that linear combination are the values of x. In the case where A is a coefficient matrix for a linear system, A times x is a vector whose entries are the left-hand sides of the equations in that system. This product, A times x, again where A is a matrix and x is a vector, that product is only defined when the number of columns of the matrix matches the number of entries of x. Otherwise, the product is undefined. Let's consider some examples where we multiply a matrix by a vector. So in this first example, we have a matrix A that has 2 rows and 3 columns being multiplied by a vector x that has 3 entries. So remember the definition. The definition of A times x is the linear combination of the columns of the matrix, where the weights in the linear combination are the entries of that vector. So we compute 4, the first entry of the vector x, times the vector 1, 0, the first column of A, plus 3, the second entry of our vector x, times the vector 2, negative 5, that's the second column of A, plus 7, that's the third entry of my vector x, multiplied by the vector negative 1, 3, that's the third column of the matrix A, and then we multiply and add, and we get the final result of the vector 3, 6. In this example, we have a matrix with 3 rows and 2 columns being multiplied by a vector x that only has 2 entries. And again, we check to make sure that the number of columns of my matrix matches the number of entries of my vector x, and in this case, again, they do match. Notice that in this case, the entries of the vector x are variables, but we treat this just the same as we did our previous example, and we write the product of that matrix times that vector is the linear combination of the columns, where the weights are the entries of my vector. And notice here that our answer is a vector that contains formulas. Finally, we look at this example, and again, we look and notice that this matrix has 2 rows and 3 columns, and the vector has 2 entries. But that means that the number of columns of the matrix does not match the number of entries of the vector, which means that this product is undefined. Now this definition of a matrix times a vector gives us 3 different ways to consider the same situation. The original way, which is what we started back in lecture 1, of a system of linear equations, our vector equations that we learned a little bit later, and now our matrix equations, which use our new definition of a matrix times a vector. All 3 of these represent the same relationship between the variables x1, x2, and x3, and will use different representations depending on which is the most convenient in any given situation. So let's consider this problem. We're given a matrix A and a vector B, and we're asked to solve the matrix equation Ax equals B. So A is the matrix that we're given, X is the variable vector, and because A has 3 columns, that variable vector must have 3 entries, so we'll call them x1, x2, and x3, and then B is the vector 4, 5 that we're given. So if we multiply A times X, as we've just learned, this gives us a linear combination of the columns of A, where the weights in that linear combination are the x's. And notice that this is a vector equation, and we know how to solve a vector equation. We set up the augmented matrix, and in that augmented matrix, the columns are the columns of A, with the augmented column being the vector B. We row reduce that matrix, and then we look for our pivots. Remember that the pivots represent our basic variables, so we write the system of linear equations corresponding to our row-reduced matrix, solve those equations for our basic variables, and then in this case we have x3 being a free variable, so here's our general solution. In general, the way that you solve a matrix equation, ax equals b, is to write the augmented matrix, where the columns of the augmented matrix are the columns of A with an additional augmented column that is B. And sometimes we'll collapse that down and simply write that as capital A, B, all in square brackets, sometimes when we need to abbreviate. So if A is an m by n matrix whose columns are A1, A2, all the way up through AN, we can consider the span of those vectors, which is the set of vectors that contains all possible linear combinations of the columns of A. And a vector B is in that span exactly when AX equals B, when that matrix equation is consistent, when there is a vector X that we can multiply A by to get B as a result. If we recall our definition of spanning set from the previous lecture, the set containing A1, A2, all the way up through AN is a spanning set for Rm, exactly when AX equals B is consistent for every vector B in Rm. That set of A vectors being a spanning set for Rm means that every vector in Rm can be constructed as a linear combination of those A vectors. But the product AX represents a linear combination of those A vectors. So this is just another way of saying the same thing that we've already learned. So now let's go back and consider the question we were asking at the end of lecture 8. If I have a collection of vectors, in this case the columns of this matrix A, I might wonder whether every possible vector can be produced as a linear combination of those vectors. And as we've just seen, another way to ask that question is to ask whether the equation AX equals B is consistent for all vectors B. So what do we need to do to answer this question? Well, as before, we need to set up an augmented matrix. So the columns of this augmented matrix are the 3 columns of A, together with an augmented column that contains those variables B1, B2, and B3. And remember that those B values are unknown. We're trying to figure out whether every possible vector B1, B2, B3 can be constructed as a linear combination of the original 3 vectors. So we need to row reduce this by hand. We can't use technology here with those variables. But the good news is that this one isn't too hard to row reduce. We'll start by identifying our first pivot and realizing that we need to replace row 2 by row 2 plus 3 times row 1. We're going to need to do a swapping operation. We can swap row 2 and row 3, and now we should notice that our matrix is in echelon form. Let's identify the pivot locations in this matrix. We need to think carefully about that entry in the lower right-hand corner. Does this matrix have a pivot in the last column? We see a formula there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a pivot in that location. Well, it might be a pivot. We could find values for B1 and B2 that make that formula be a non-zero value. So for example, if B is the vector 1, 1, 1, then 3B1 plus B2 works out to be 4. That means that that lower right-hand corner would be a pivot. It doesn't have to be a pivot, but because there's a value for the vector B for which we do have a pivot in the last column, that means for that B, and presumably other values of B, this equation is inconsistent. So let's think about what we've just done. Why didn't AX equals B have a solution for all B? Well, the problem was that not every row of the coefficient matrix A had a pivot. That left room for there to be a pivot in the last column of that augmented matrix. But if every row of our coefficient matrix A has a pivot, then there won't be any room for there to be a pivot in that final augmented column. And in that case, AX equals B will have a solution no matter what B is. Let's start tying these pieces together. Suppose we have a set of vectors in Rm. The definition of span from the previous lecture tells us that this set of vectors spans Rm, or in other words, is a spanning set for Rm. That means the same as saying that the vector equation, x1a1 plus x2a2 plus xnan equals b, that vector equation is consistent for all vectors b in Rm. But if we have a matrix whose columns are the A's, then we can rewrite that equivalence as saying that the columns of A span Rm, that means the same as saying that the equation ax equals b is consistent for all vectors b in Rm. And all we're doing here is taking that vector equation from the previous slide and rewriting it as a matrix equation on this slide. So we know that ax equals b will be consistent for all b exactly when the coefficient matrix A has a pivot in every row. That's what we learned from looking at example 4. And so we can tie all of this together into something called the Spanning Columns Theorem. Here's what that theorem says. It says that if you have an m by n matrix, then these 4 statements are equivalent, which means that for any given matrix A, all 4 statements are true, or all 4 statements are false. What are the 4 statements? First one says that the columns of A span Rm. Another way to say that is that the columns of A form a spanning set for Rm. Number 2 says that the equation ax equals b is consistent for all b in Rm. We've talked about that equivalence already. Number 3 says every vector b can be written as a linear combination of the columns of A. That's just rephrasing statement number 2. And then statement number 4 here says that the matrix A has a pivot in every row. And that's the equivalence that we recognized from what we did in example 4. So hopefully you can see from our discussion in this lecture why all 4 of these statements are equivalent. Why, if any one of these statements is true, they must all be true, or if any one of these statements is false, then they must all be false. So how do we use this theorem? Well, this theorem is useful because it gives us a better way of figuring out whether a set of vectors is a spanning set for Rm. Up until now, we've had to row reduce by hand an augmented matrix where the final column had b variables in it. We no longer need to do that. Instead, now we can just set up a matrix whose columns are the given vectors. So that won't be an augmented matrix. It'll just be a matrix whose columns are the given vectors. We row reduce that and then check to see if there's a pivot in every row. Let's work through an example. So here we're given a matrix A and asked, do the columns of this matrix span R3? Notice that this matrix has 4 columns, so there are 4 vectors that we're talking about, and each of those vectors has 3 entries, so those vectors are all in R3. So the solution is to row reduce this matrix and check for a pivot in every row. This is a different process from what we've been doing up until now. And when we row reduce the matrix, now we're looking in each row and looking for a pivot in every row. We find that we do have a pivot in every row, which means that by that spanning columns theorem that we talked about, the columns of A do in fact span R3. Every vector in R3 can be constructed as a linear combination of the 4 columns that were given here. Notice, though, that this matrix has a pivot in the final column, but that's not relevant to the question that we're talking about. This is a different kind of question that we're asking. We're not row reducing an augmented matrix. We're not looking for a pivot in the last column. We're doing something different. All right, one more thing before we finish up in this lecture. There's a more convenient way to think about multiplying a matrix times a vector. We worked through a couple of examples back in example 2, but there's an easier way to do it. Rather than rewriting A times X as a linear combination, instead what we'll do is we'll go across each row of our matrix and down the entries of our vector X, multiplying corresponding entries and adding the results. This will give us the same result as what we did before in example 2, but in a more efficient way. But keep in mind, for the product of a matrix and a vector to be defined, the number of columns of the matrix must equal the number of entries of our vector. So for example, suppose that we need to multiply this matrix times this vector. First, we check to make sure that the number of columns of the matrix matches the number of entries of our vector. We see that the matrix has 4 columns and the vector has 4 entries, so they do match, which means this product is defined. We start by going across the first row of our matrix and down the entries of our vector, multiplying and adding. When we do that, we see that the first entry of our product vector is 13. Next, we go to the second row of our matrix, down the same entries of our vector, multiplying and adding, which gives us our second entry of the product being -1. And finally, we go across the third row of our matrix and down the entries of our vector, multiplying and adding to get the third entry being 2. And so we get the final result of 13, -1, 2. Again, this is the same result as if we rewrote this as a linear combination, but it's just a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient when you're doing it by hand. One more thing. This new operation of multiplying a matrix times a vector has a couple of nice properties that will be convenient for us going forward. We've got a distributive property, and then we've got a compatibility property. And this just means that this new operation of a matrix times a vector plays nicely with the operations on vectors that we've already talked about, vector addition and scalar multiplication. Check the video description below for a link to another video where I work through some more examples of problems involving span. Thanks for watching this video lecture. You can find links to the other videos in this series and to the written textbook in the description below. If you're an instructor, you can contact me for more information about the over 300 online linear algebra homework problems that I've created for the free My Open Math platform.